Hey there, witches, and welcome to Moonstone Witchery, the podcast where we chat about spirituality and witchcraft in a modern context. I am Rian Lockard, and I'm super excited to be talking with you today. You can find me over on Instagram at my Instagram page at moonstone_witchery. You can find me on my website at moonstonewitchery.com. And please come join me in my little Facebook group. It's a really active and amazing group on Facebook, and we are talking about fun witchy things on the regular. I also want to say that I've been doing a lot of intuitive readings recently. Those readings just light up my heart. So if you are interested in intuitive reading, I have several options. I try to keep them affordable. You can either do a e-reading with me, which is 5 questions that I'll answer digitally for you, or I do phone readings, half an hour or 1 hour calls. They're not Zoom calls, they're just voice calls. I can accommodate you if you want video calls though. And for funsies, I love to do this thing that is called a photo reading or a blind photo reading. So what happens with that is you send me a photo of anybody and I can tell you all about them. And in those readings, I include a 1-question follow-up, and I keep those super affordable at $15 each. So hit me up, find me on my website, or send me a DM on Instagram, and we will get you set up with that. All right, let's get to it. Today's episode is about being highly sensitive, or somebody who is considered a highly sensitive person. This is kind of like being an empath, although I think there's some differences. I think that all empaths are highly sensitive people, but maybe it could be said that not all highly sensitive people are empaths. What does it mean to be highly sensitive? Well, it means a lot of things. It means that you are... It's the way I describe being highly sensitive is kind of like the whole world feels a little like sandpapery against me. You know, it's like everything feels very, I don't want to say harsh, but I'm just very aware of all of the energy around me at all times. And if you feel similarly to this, you might want to listen on and see if any of these things that make someone highly sensitive fit you. And I'm also going to try to fit into this podcast episode a little mini guide on how to support yourself if you do find out that you identify with being a highly sensitive person. I have this theory that as scientists kind of go throughout their process of studying the world and studying the people who inhabit the world, that spirituality and science are going to basically merge. I just have always felt that the spiritual world, or those of us kind of working in and advocating for or living in or acknowledging is probably the word I want, the spiritual world, that those of us who do that, we're willing to bypass the tangible explanations for why something is happening within us or what is going on within us. And instead, we just trust in what our experience is. We're trusting in our own experiences. And that science is, and of course this would take longer, but science is attempting to eventually understand and explain how what we experience on the regular is happening. So I ultimately think that there is unity between the scientific community and the spiritual community, but I don't know when or how that unity is going to happen or when they merge, but I do believe they're going to. Now, that said, I feel that people who are highly sensitive, it's almost like we have this, I want to say it's a blessing and a gift, and I also want to say it can be a drawback. I'm not going to use the word curse because in the witchcraft community, that's a very real thing, but there's pros and cons, just like everything else. It's duality, right? It's like there are gifts that being highly sensitive give to us, and then there are the things we have to be more aware of in order to take care of ourselves as highly sensitive people. One of the ways you can tell if you are a highly sensitive person is if it's like being around certain people or in certain situations, it can be really draining to you. If a lot going on around you, or not even if it's chaotic energy, but if the energy around you is just a little bit intense or a little bit disorganized or a little bit stressed out, that's going to kind of take out a highly sensitive person, at least internally. Like at least when you are highly sensitive and there's like chaos or drama or a lot of big energy around you, it's going to kind of like deplete your own resources. If there's any kind of violence or agitation or irritability or anything that makes us feel even just slightly unsafe, we as highly sensitive people are like hyper aware of that. Like we are just like, oh my gosh, do you feel what's happening? What's going on right now? And even if we don't have a person to say that to, we're dialoguing about that within ourselves and we're maneuvering around that energy. A lot of noise or change in the lights or things like that can be kind of maybe throw off a highly sensitive person. You don't really like to be pressured or have others' expectations put upon you when you haven't opted into agreeing to them. So what I mean by that is like if you're trying to get ready to go somewhere and suddenly at the last minute somebody changes their mind and they need to leave sooner, or if you're trying to get something accomplished within yourself before you have to do something and suddenly the time frame changes, that can really stress out a highly sensitive person. And it's not so much the fact that it's the unexpected, because some of us are really good at being in the flow of things that are unexpected, but it's kind of also along the lines of the fact that now suddenly we have to take someone else's perspective or concept of what's going on into account and work around it. And if we had been in our own zone, like doing things in our own capacity or in our own way, it can really throw us off to now suddenly have to manage somebody else's energy and somebody else's mood and like maybe their stress about time or whatever that case may be. Highly sensitive people they have a deep inner world. They often get lost in their thoughts. They sort of trail off into some like sort of philosophical daydream or something like that. They just kind of exist really very fully within their own world. And the interesting challenge for highly sensitive people is that you have to determine how you want to show up with your own inner world, how much of that you're going to exhibit or embody or share with the rest of the world, right? Because we are aware of many forms of reality. And I want to talk about that for a second, because the concept of like reality is very like not actually a real thing. And I don't even mean on some weird like cosmic level that we can't describe. And I don't even mean like, oh, like what if this whole thing is like a dream or whatever. What I mean is like, we are aware that we have our own realities. We are aware that other people have their own realities. Okay. And we are aware that there is a joint kind of group reality. And actually there are many joint group realities, and we choose how much of ourselves wants to join in and step into those other realities that exist around us, and how much of us wants to just sort of stay in our own little bubble within ourselves. So your reality is where your emotions, your thoughts, the things you wonder about, the knowledge you have about who you are and what you're experiencing throughout every day, that's all kept inside with you in your own reality. You choose how much of that you want to share in any given moment, and you base that decision on what the energy is like around you. If the energy around you isn't feeling like particularly warm and fuzzy or like particularly inviting and like kind, often highly sensitive people have really learned how to mask and shield their inner reality from those in the external reality. Now, that doesn't mean that it feels good, and it doesn't mean that it comes easily to a highly sensitive person to do that. It just simply means that they're super aware that whatever they're experiencing is not something they want to put out into the reality around them. They're also aware that everybody around them is going through a similar experience, whether those people are aware of it or not. Because here's I don't want to say the word I was going to go to because I'm practicing not swearing so much. Here's like the thing that messes with your mind the most. The thing that messes with your mind the most when you are highly sensitive and you are aware of other people's experiences is that maybe they don't know though. Have you ever realized this? That like you've been with someone who is not highly sensitive, is not hyper aware of the emotions and experiences of those around them, and who is not really impacted by the energy of places and situations. And when you're around those people and you know something's going on within them, it can kind of really impact what's happening within you. But the mind F, which is the word I was going to use, the mind F about that is that like, they might not know what's going on. And so as someone who's highly sensitive, you're navigating around experiences that nobody else might be acknowledging. And that's challenging. So being gentle with yourself as someone who's highly sensitive is like critically important. Frequently, this sense that we carry within us is activated in our childhood in some capacity or another. And my theory is that a lot of people who are extreme empaths or extremely highly sensitive people have come up in a traumatic upbringing or have had a traumatic event happen to them at some point, because I believe that being highly sensitive and being an empath is almost an evolutionary like fear response or a trauma response. I think that what we do is we cultivate this skill within us to make sure that we are fundamentally safe and okay at all times. And so our ability to have the pulse on the situations around us is very critically important on a base level for our own safety, or at least that's the origin of where that skill got developed from. It comes from a need to be hyper aware of what's happening around us so that we can maintain our own safety and we can protect ourselves. Fundamentally, our gift, if we want to call it that, or our way of being in the world, our natural way of being, is really contingent upon the fact that we are able to accurately read the room, or read the energy of the people around us, or read the circumstances that are happening around us. So the mere fact that you have this skill or this capability is a trigger for you to really know and understand within yourself that you require gentleness, because it's like sad. It's touching and it's sad and it's overwhelming in a way to realize, oh, okay, this is my body's way of trying to protect me. This is my soul's way of trying to keep me safe in my life no matter what. And fundamentally, that's a really beautiful and sweet gift, but it's also like makes you want to give little you this like big hug and be like, everything's okay. Which, by the way, I recommend doing things like that. If you can go into a meditative state with yourself and just summon up the energy of a previous version of you that needs love or a hug, or she needs to know that everything's okay, I want you to send that information to her, because I believe that that actually is fundamentally incredibly healing, because the energy that we send to those versions of ourselves, I believe, can transcend time and space and literally can go back to the version of us that needed those reassurances in those moments, and it can actively change something or help or provide some actual support to us. So I want you to think about that as you contemplate the information we're chatting about today, because I think that it's so important to do our own healing. I really believe that if we are ever going to, quote, ascend or self-actualize or get to a higher vibration or connect to our higher self in a deeper, more meaningful way, if we're going to ever do that, we have to heal. That's sort of why I believe that our self-work is so fundamentally important to our spiritual path and to our gift of magic and to leveling up in this capacity and to becoming like the best witch we can be, or whatever word you want to use for yourself. But I think it's important, because if we don't heal, what's happening is that everything that's happened to us stands between us and our self-actualization. And we have to walk through all of that, like kind of gross, like thick fog of all of our experiences that have taken us away from who we are. We have to wade through those to just get back to ourselves. Some people think about the journey of self-actualization or ascension or whatever words you want to use. Some people think of that as something external, or it's like there's this ladder I need to climb, and when I climb it, I'll be like on the mountaintop and I'll be really aware and I'll be really wise and I'll have ascended. And I want to say that it's actually the opposite. I want to tell you that the journey to self-actualization is actually more of something that you like dig into yourself to do. You need like a shovel, or you need to like climb that ladder down into the self and get through whatever it is, because you'll find that when you get down into the core of who you are, that's where like the mountaintop actually is, that you can sit upon and view the world with that bird's eye view. It's in there. It's in there through all of what you've been through to get you back to your truest self. We all come in here as our truest self, and then we are conditioned out of that person. And so our job is to unearth who we are and then act from there. Let's get back on track though, because I'm talking about what it's like to be highly sensitive. When you're highly sensitive, little things can kind of just throw you off. And it's funny because the flip side of this is that many highly sensitive people have this ability to go with the flow, that they've just figured out within themselves how to be incredibly adaptable. So especially if somebody, sorry, I got really loud because I just got excited because I thought of something else I wanted to tell you, especially if there's somebody else around us having some kind of like crisis or emotional like breakdown. Now, this is different than somebody having an unacknowledged vibe, because someone walking around with an unacknowledged vibe feels like danger, or it feels like ew, or it feels like they're doing it at us, right? Or it feels like, whoa, check yourself. Like, why are you like infiltrating this room with your toxicity, right? Like someone walking around with an unacknowledged storm cloud around them is invasive, and it's like a little rude, but it also really affects us because anything that's unacknowledged is very difficult for us, right? So we have to manage that, because it's, if we're not safe enough to bring it up, or if we're not safe enough to say what's happening with you right now, then we have to just like manage our way around that storm cloud. And that can be super triggering, especially if you think about what I said a few minutes ago about highly sensitive people developing these gifts and these skills as a trauma response. It's like, oh my gosh, anything could happen at any moment, right? But someone who's acknowledging what they're going through, someone who's kind of having a moment or an experience within themselves that's highly emotional or challenging or difficult for them in some way, a highly sensitive person is like on point for that. Like we can show up and we can be like, let me help you manage this experience. Let me help you like contain it. Let me give you some tools. Let me be the shoulder to cry on or the ear to listen to. And we are like able to really connect to people in their places of vulnerability and truth. And it's because they are in their vulnerability and truth that we can connect to them. See, a highly sensitive person does not do well with falsity. They don't do well with anyone portraying things like it's one way, but it's really another. They don't do well with inauthenticity. They don't do well with having to pretend that things are a certain way when they're not. Highly sensitive people are like hyper aware of what's actually going on. So to show up in any way that's quote fake is very difficult. And you'll find that if you've had to spend the day putting on a certain front or ignoring that energy around you, that you're going to be exhausted at the end of that day. But if you can, as a highly sensitive person, if you can be in a situation in which it's safe to acknowledge and talk through and work through the energy that's happening all around you, then you can thrive, because not only can you help others improve their situations because of your sensitivity, but you can also like be having an authentic experience with yourself, and you don't have to feel like you're in check so much. You don't have to feel like you're worried about what's going on. So the best thing a highly sensitive person can do is to create and cultivate safe relationships for herself and a safe home environment, because we can't control like the world out around us, right? Like we to an extent, we can't control like our workplace or something like that. I would say if you identify early enough in life that you're highly sensitive, you can choose career paths that will actually be supportive of you. I find that highly sensitive people work really well, obviously, in the arts. They work really well with children. They work really well in therapeutic environments. They work really well in like the self-help, like spirituality field. They work really well in environments that are not so false, or like you don't have to show up a certain way. I find that highly sensitive people tend to have a really hard time at desk jobs or in corporate situations, just simply because there is this whole air of like inauthenticity around all of it. Like there's professionalism that has to be maintained. So there's a lot of, when there is bureaucratic things happening, or, you know, when there's like office-ish going on, right? That's really hard for a highly sensitive person, because they're kind of always wondering like, oh, there's like Leslie overhead her desk, like secretly mad at whoever because of whatever, or like someone's leaving passive aggressive notes on the refrigerator again, or you know what I mean? Whatever it is, those are challenging circumstances for someone who is highly sensitive and feels like it's their responsibility to be aware of the energy all around them at all times. But if you can't manage that, if you're in a work environment where it's like, oh man, I just got to show up, like deal with it, like bring your crystals to work, right? Like you can even like ask your clothes to like protect you. I know that sounds like next level. Like, I don't know, like people might listen to that and say, I don't know if I'm ready to be that weird, but I don't think it's weird. That's like some really like everyday witchcraft kind of move, like that you can do to enchant your clothes, and just simply by holding it and saying like, I want you to be my armor. I want you to shield and protect me. I often wear clothes that are like the color that aligns with the energy either I want to be in that day or the energy that I am in that day. Or I will always ask my clothes to like protect me in some capacity, especially if I know I'm walking into a situation that is higher stress for me. But so anyway, if you have to work in an environment that's not really like super supportive of you being highly sensitive, there are little things like that you can do. I know a guy that keeps like, it's like this piece of selenite, but it's like the size and shape of a bar of soap, kind of. It fits in his hand like that. And he literally takes it at his desk and he like rubs his body. It sounds weird, but it's not really. He like rubs his energy field down with this selenite soap. And he says it's like really helpful. It really helps cleanse and neutralize his energy when he's in that highly sensitive, like triggered out space at work. So that kind of thing is like a skill you could use. Selenite is really good at raising a lower vibration or elevating you to the energy that you want to be at when you're feeling dragged down by what's going on around you. I'm obsessed with selenite. I use selenite for anything and everything. I would say put selenite in the four corners of your home if you are feeling like your home has some bad vibes. I would put, and every room that I have where I live has selenite in the four corners because it's creating like a crystal grid almost, especially if you activate the crystals by talking to them and explaining to them what you want them to do. And it creates like a crystal grid of just like higher vibe energy just circulating in this space, okay? But so the best thing a highly sensitive person can do is to cultivate safe relationships. Now, of course, this is like obviously everybody's like number one area that they need to do self-work around. And I get that, so you might want to start there. But if you can have a safe home environment so that you can come home and just decompress, you will be recharged a lot easier and a lot better than if you don't have an environment that feels safe to you. Because highly sensitive people really need that sense of retreat. They need a place to go where they just feel like, okay, I can sit here, I can be okay, I can relax. Like if somebody's in a mood, they'll tell me about it. If somebody's feeling something, I'll be safe enough to ask about it, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're not in a safe relationship and you're always feeling drained or exhausted or just like completely stressed out, it might be because you are highly sensitive and your environments are they're just sort of attacking all of your receptors, like you look like this skitsed out like cat with its like fur all around it. And you're just like, oh my God, I'm never okay. Right? Like cats are highly sensitive creatures too. I love cats. I really like, I just like side note tangent. I love cats because they are not liars, right? Like, can you always know where you stand with a cat? Cats have excellent boundaries and cats are like very aware of the vibe and they don't second guess that. If someone's in a mood, a cat will either like steer clear with like a swat, right? Like get your mood out of here. Or like a cat will come and sit with you and try to like absorb your mood or like purr your mood into a different space. I just think cats are really spiritually connected creatures. And I love all animals. I am an animal lover. I am like the person that takes the bugs outside. I just love all animals. So I'm not biased. I'm not just a cat lady. I also have a dog, but dogs seem to be like of the earth. Like they're like very earthbound creatures and they're very like present and tangible reality. But cats are like of the spiritual realm and they like tolerate existing in their earth form. And I feel like that all the time. I feel like, and I'm sure many of you relate, like I feel like I'm very of the spiritual realm and I'm so aware of everything that's unseen and everything that's just being felt and experienced. And I will tolerate the earth realm, but tolerating the earth realm is baseline draining, which is why we have to, it is our responsibility to set up an earth realm, right? Like a home or a living environment that is as conducive as possible for our own ability to like manage ourselves and to recharge. Another thing about being highly sensitive is that, like, I feel as if we often get diagnosed with anxiety, and I don't want to go against anyone's diagnoses because whatever you're working on to manage your anxiety is also going to just co-support you in managing being highly sensitive. But we often get diagnosed as having anxiety because we are so aware. It's different than anxiety that is based in like worry and concern. Although I will say too that highly sensitive people do tend to have a lot of actual like worry and concern and anxiety as well, because what we're doing is we're like planning ahead. We're trying to figure out what's the energy going to be like there. What's the vibe going to be? Like, how am I going to feel? Like, what am I going to have to do? Like, how am I going to have to manage it? And so that's a form of being highly sensitive, is that your mind projects forward to try to like plan for those things. You can drop into a safer space if you can create a safer environment for yourself. So I want you to to know that. So like you will feel the need to worry less if you know that when you come home, you're going to be okay. But our anxiety kind of is just like heightened because we're so aware. This can be a good thing or a not good thing. So it transitions from anxiety into energy when it's like, okay, there's so much positive energy around me. I'm feeling so inspired. Like I'm feeling really good. Like I'm going to tackle my day. And that energy is probably more rare for most people who are highly sensitive, simply because they don't know that that's your baseline. Actually, your baseline as a highly sensitive person who is in a safe and productive environment is to be energized and inspired and connected to the divine. And like your channel is open. You are receiving all of your information. You are in that good energetic vibration. That's who you truly are. It's when you get taken out of your safety, or when you get taken out of that baseline space, that things start to get a little wonky and a little haywire. So if you take one thing away from here, it's that I want you to work on cultivating like safety within your personal spaces for yourself. I need a retreat center for you inside of your own home, if that's just your bed or your bedroom, or a lot of highly sensitive people, it's the bathroom. And it's because, number one, water represents spirit, but number two, not only that, when we're in the bathroom, it's like the only place we know where we can go to like actually be alone and not have anyone bother us. And soaking in a tub is really so helpful when we're highly sensitive, especially if you can tend to put your energy into the bath water and like let it drain away or something like that. But find a safe space within yourself, or find a safe space within your world that you can go to kind of decompress and to just know that it's safe and sacred, and keep your boundaries up around that place where you don't allow anybody who doesn't match that vibe into that space with you. Okay. I think that those of us who are highly sensitive, it's just like having sensory issues. It's another form of sensory processing issues, in my opinion. It's just showing up in a different way, where we're so aware of everything that's going on that we just need to manage ourselves. And we are really also, so what I've been talking about so far is the kind of the drawbacks, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to help you identify these traits within yourself. But we are so aware of all the energy around us that we're also aware of all the spiritual energy around us. We're also aware of the downloads that we're getting from spirit. We're also aware of the, whether there's ghosts or earthbound beings is what I like to call them, or whether there's light beings, or whether there's just like energetic footprints in certain places. We're aware of those, and we know about them, and we are mitigating the energy from those situations, as well as the energy that we're picking up from the other people around us. So there's a lot going on for a highly sensitive person just on a baseline. So if you when you were little, if you were kind of like always crying, right? Or like really shy or withdrawn, or had kind of trouble opening up or making friends, or just sort of dropping easily into groups of other kids and stuff like that, it's probably because you were very sensitive to the energy around you, and yet you didn't really know what to do about it, and you didn't have a word for it. It's very disorienting to be a child and to be aware of people's energy, their energy fields, the energy of the spiritual creatures around you, the energy of the animals around you, the energy of homes. Like when you're little and you go into a house that's got a lot of old energy in it, it's like, whoa, right? It happens like that to us as adults too, but what happens throughout your life when you are highly sensitive to energy and you grow up is you sort of learn to filter it out like as noise in the background. You kind of learn to just be like, all right, I'm going into this old building. It's going to feel like this or that. When you're little, it's all so new and you're not really sure where your attention needs to go and what you need to notice first and foremost. So highly sensitive children, energetically highly sensitive children, they might seem like they're acting out, or they might seem like they're always crying or having these extreme emotional reactions, and it's because their little bodies are just absorbing so much energy. So if you can look back in your own life and see that that was something that happened with you, or that you relate to that, or if you have children of your own and they're going through that too, it's like, yeah, that suddenly makes a lot of sense, but it's hard to help them intellectually understand and comprehend what it is they're experiencing. So your job as the parent of a highly sensitive child is to help them manage those emotional experiences and those energetic experiences that they're going through, because they don't know how to manage them on their own yet. So taking a child outside if an environment is really energetically overwhelming is really helpful. Standing in the ground, learning as they get older, you can have dialogues with them around, not taking people's energies on as their own, like not taking their moods personally or not absorbing other people's moods. Because again, if we go back to that concept that every person is having their own reality and that we are all opting into a shared agreed upon reality. And then it's like, so let's say like within your home environment, like you have your own reality, your partner has their own reality happening within themselves. And then like together you combine and have a kind of group reality that you're both agreeing to with it, where it's like, well, what are we doing today? And like, this is the energy of what we're doing today. But if your partner's bringing some type of vibe with them in the car, you're going to be like, okay, what's happening with you, right? Like, whatever. So the interpersonal realities that we each maintain can affect the collective realities that we're all opting into. But then it's like, whenever you get to wherever you're going, let's say you're going to like a family gathering or something like that, there's a fourth reality, which is the reality of the gathering, which is like the vibe we're all opting into to participate in this group activity, right? And so highly sensitive people are managing the energy that's emanating from all of those different realities. So of course it can be really draining if we don't know how to center ourselves or ground ourselves. This is why crystals really are helpful, because crystals resonate at certain vibrations. And when we are needing to get our energy to a certain vibration, if you hold a crystal that resonates at that vibration, it helps you. It's almost like taking an anxiety medication. I am not advocating that you do not take your anxiety medication. In fact, I am like very pro anxiety medication. So go ahead and take what's prescribed of you and hold a crystal, right? Like you can do both, because what crystals do is like they sit in our hand and they join and they fuse with our vibration. And if we're saying, okay, I'm going into this environment, it's going to be like a lot for me. Can you help me filter this energy? Your crystal's like this little pet that you're holding, and it's like, yes, I'm so excited to like use my gifts and my skills to help you, right? Like, and in return, we say thank you, crystals, and we like cleanse their energy when they get overloaded, and we put them out by the moon, and we like put them on their little crystal grids, and we like sit them on like charging plates, and we do nice things for our crystals as well. And it's this beautiful little like joint relationship that we all have together. Okay. So I want you to be aware of the many different versions of reality that are happening around you, so you can help yourself through them, and you can help any highly sensitive children you're aware through them as well, because we're all just trying to manage everything that we're processing and taking in, and we're all trying to manage that in a way that is ultimately supportive of our highest good and our ultimate healing. You might have realized as a child that you were either told that you were too much or that you were like not enough in some way. This is a really common thing that highly sensitive children go through. They're always too much because they're emoting too much. They're experiencing too many feelings. They're going through too much within themselves, and it either like leaks out or they withdraw into themselves like in this really profound way, and they're quiet and sort of not opening up and not sharing and not expressing themselves. And that's when highly sensitive children are not enough. And I know when I was young, I was definitely told I was both. I was too much when I would be like at a birthday party and something would happen and I would end up like in tears because I was my feelings were hurt for some reason or another. But it was because I was managing all that energy. And I would be told, knock it off, stop, why are you crying? Like, you're too much, like, too sensitive was the thing I was always told I was, which turns out that's true. Like, I'm so sensitive that I'm like, hey, don't you guys know about the ghost in the corner of the room? But like, I didn't know to even say that when I was little, right? And you as an adult might be aware of the ghost in the corner of the room, but you might not see it with your physical, tangible eyes. So you're kind of like, what's up with me? Why do I hate this room? Oh my God, I need to get out of it. But if you're stuck in it, that's going to drain you, right? So that's where I was too much. I was not enough because whenever I met someone new, I was like silent and would not talk to them, especially if they were adults. And that's because I was like checking out their vibe. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but that's absolutely what I was doing. I was watching, I was observing, and I was checking out their vibe. Highly sensitive people are generally really like observers. We do this thing where we watch and we pay attention because what we're doing is we're getting the temperature of a situation, and we're doing that to figure out, all right, well, what's up? What do I need to be aware of? How is this energy going to affect me and impact me? And then how do I need to manage myself? And now if you're not used to doing your self-work, you're not going to ask yourself those important questions. You're just going to walk into a space and be like super overwhelmed, and people are going to think, well, you're just irritable, or you don't like to go out, or you don't like to be around. And it's none of that. It's because it's all too much. Another thing that highly sensitive people tend towards is like substance abuse in order to manage the like overwhelming amount of information that we're trying to process. So I want you to just sit with yourself, right? And I want you to have a real conversation with yourself. And I want you to say, like, if I had the tools to manage all the energy I'm always absorbing, how would I feel? Just like let yourself imagine that reality in which you have tools and you're supported and you can manage everything that's coming your way, because I want you to know that having all those tools is possible, and it is okay, and it is something you can do. You can manage this experience for yourself. But just like everything else, it's not our fault that we are this way, but it is our responsibility to manage how it manifests within us so that we can have our own greatest life, so that we can have this like experience of doing that deep self-work to connect to our truest self, because that is how we ascend. That is how we become self-actualized. That is how we become our higher self. That is how we live the life our soul wants to live. It's through that deep self-exploration and then a willingness to care for ourselves, love ourselves, and manage what our needs are, that we can finally feel safe enough to say to ourselves, like, who am I truly, and what gifts do I have to offer the world? How can I just get in touch with myself, make it as safe for myself as possible, and then bless the world with all of my gifts that I find within myself in that place. So these are just my thoughts for today. This is a lot to think about and to take in, because having a highly sensitive personality, or being a highly sensitive person, I mean, think about it this way. They call it ESP. When you are psychically gifted or energetically gifted and doing the ability to read people's energy, they used to call that ESP. That means extrasensory perception. That simply means like, I am aware, I have an extra sense that is perceiving everything that's going on around me. And that's what I've been talking to you about today, is having like ESP, having that conceptualization of an understanding of all of the energy around you at all times. And then like, what do you want to do about it? And if you can acknowledge that it's there and not make yourself wrong and not shame yourself for knowing about it, but acknowledge that it's there, trust yourself that it's real, and then say to yourself, okay, now how do I want to manage this? If you can do those things, you are giving yourself the greatest gift that you've actually always needed, but maybe never had your finger on, like what would help me. And acknowledging your truth as being real, acknowledging your reality as being real, is really the biggest step in that right direction to feeling better and to taking control of your life and to living a life that you want. Acknowledging that what you're experiencing is really happening is so fundamentally critical to your first step of getting into that life that you want to be in. That's the greatest gift you can give yourself. So sit and think about these things with yourself for a little while. As always, if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about, you know how to find me. Find me on Instagram in my DMs at moonstone_witchery, or send me a message through the contact form on my website at moonstonewitchery.com. And if you ever need someone to talk about or need any coaching around how to like manage yourself in this way, I do offer life coaching. I've been a certified life coach for longer than I've been doing anything else. I've been certified for almost 15 years, which is crazy. So you can submit a contact query and we can chat about all that too. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to recording another podcast for you next week. If you have any ideas for anything you'd like me to talk about, please send them in and we will chat. Thank you so much and have a blessed week.